And then, yeah, we'll just kind of get started. So we have a lot of people signed up tonight. 73 people are signed up, which is amazing. If that tells you anything about our kids and sleep, this is our largest group of people who are truly interested in like not having great sleepers. So more than our babies, more than our toddlers. We're looking at our 3 to 8 year old, and probably even older kids. So it's not surprising to me. I'm working with a much kind of increased number of kids in this age range because I think people are starting to figure out that it's not something that's just going to kind of solve itself. So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you to Partners in Pediatrics. We're here with Ben Jessen and Nancy Latitis. Am I saying that right? Dr. Nancy. We all know you as Dr. Nancy. So, um, and I'm going to encourage the providers to definitely pop in if you want to add something as I'm going. But if I sort of ask some questions to you, and then when we open up to the Q&A, for sure, would love to have your expertise and your thoughts there. That's been really fun the past couple of nights doing some collaborative just kind of looking at how we all bring a different approach to these different topics. So, and then in terms of Q&A, I'm going to try my very best to talk for no more than 30 minutes because I know we're going to have tons of questions. I'd love for people to put their questions into the chat. And then when we open it up, I'll just start going through the chat questions. I'll have you open up your mics and talk to me that way. So though that's my request. And we'll just get going. Um, so I'm Sarah. I live here in Centennial, and my kids go to Partners in Pediatrics. My youngest, Nora and William, and I have two grown stepchildren. And I said I do a lot of momming. It's true. I'm momming all the time over here, whether it's my children or other people's children. I pediatric sleep consultant. Worked with hundreds of families in from birth all the way up through age 12, 13 years of age. So there's a lot to cover in with sleep and kids, right? I'm also a certified lactation counselor, but that's probably not going to apply to anyone in this age range tonight. I love Colorado, love to be outdoors, and I really love to sleep. So that's just a little bit about me. So hold on. Oops, I'm going the wrong direction. I'm totally going the wrong direction. Isn't that weird? Hang on a second, team. I need to go back. Okay, great. So what we're going to try to talk about, I mean, there's a lot we could cover, but what I'm going to try to talk about tonight are kind of my most common questions that come up for this age range. And just to make sure you're kind of in the right group, we're talking about kids about 3 years of age through about 8 years old, but some of these things will apply to your older children as well. Some of it might seem like it's geared towards the slightly younger children, but we're going to try to kind of cover the full range. If you have any questions that don't get answered tonight, I just encourage you to email me. I'm Sarah@sleeperteachers.com. I can just kind of put that into the chat. And if you find that your issues are bigger than what we're talking about, do not hesitate to schedule an eval call. I have information on that in the end. And, we can talk about your situation because I promise you almost everything around sleep can be solved, which is really hopeful, I think. So let me put this in and then I will talk about these questions. Okay, so one question I get is it too late to sleep train? A lot of people have associated it with babies, right? And they think like, oh gosh, I've got this like 5-year-old who is, but we've got 2 hours of bedtime pushback. They're coming to my room 2 or 3 times a night. We've got early morning wakings. They're crabby all the time. And, or I just worked not too long ago with a 7-year-old who was having headaches during school, falling asleep in class, and I think people sometimes think like they've missed the boat or it's too late. It's not too late. I have an anxious sleeper. What should I do? Right? Anxiety is a big thing. It plays into our sleep a lot when we're young, even when we're adults, right? I mean, how many of us have a busy mind and have trouble kind of settling at night? So it's definitely something that we're going to talk about today. What if my child relies on me to get to sleep? This is probably the number one question that we're going to see. And that is that kids have got, they're in the habit or the behavior of having a mom or a dad or a grandma or someone in the room with them until they're asleep. And then we see the subsequent nighttime wakings. So we're going to talk about that. What's a good bedtime and how much sleep does my child really need? We're seeing a lot that kids are not getting enough sleep. We're not going to bed early enough, and we're not giving their bodies an opportunity to truly sleep when the body is more inclined to do so in the earlier hours of the night when we're naturally producing melatonin. So something to think about. Will our sleep problems solve themselves if I just keep waiting? You tell me. I mean, we've been waiting this long and it hasn't corrected itself. Usually it's not going to. And for me, it's just kind of a personal tragedy when we have teenagers who, in addition to all of the anxieties that they have around school and sports and on, also don't know how to do independent sleep, right? And then that does translate into our adult lives. So it's really great if we can get it on board early. And then the last question: my child was an okay sleeper, but then fill in the blank, vacation, COVID, a nightmare one night, and we brought them into our bed with us. And now every night we've got a little visitor, right? Very, very quickly we do that downward spiral. And it's a lot of, it's hard for parents to sometimes know how to get back to the good behavior. So it's something that I just kind of want us to think about as a group, kind of as we're talking tonight. And that is if you can imagine what would be different in your life if poor sleep was something that you could solve. We see a lot of people who are sort of dreading bedtime because you don't know how long it's going to take. You're kind of done with your day. You'd really like to move on and have some time with your partner. You'd like to have the kids in bed. We've got arguing, we've got bedtime pushback, we've got fussing, we've got overwhelm. What we find when we're all sleeping more, so our children and ourselves, is that we have more patience. We have more positive family interactions. We feel better. So helpful for everything, right? Sleep is like that magic elixir, but for our immune systems and cardiovascular health, for our memory consolidation, this was something that I didn't really know before I did all of my training around sleep, is that the information that we're coming in contact with during the day, so at school, at work, with all of our development, really doesn't get stored into long-term memory until we're asleep. So memory consolidation happens during those NREM and REM levels, those deeper restorative levels of sleep. So it's just really important for all of us. So I'm proud of you for signing up, and I'm glad you're here today to talk about it. So one of the things that we find is really helpful in improving the whole process is improving the journey into sleep. So this is a pre-bedtime routine. It's from a program called relaxkids.com. So that's something that if you want to learn a little bit more about it, but some of the thing we want to do is we want to do some moving. So, for our younger kids, head, shoulders, knees, and toes, you could have a dance party. And this doesn't need to be in the bedroom, as part of the bedtime routine. This is actually just getting ready during that transition, because a lot of our kids have trouble with transition, right? It's hard to get them from what they were doing, especially if they're doing something like screens. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit because of the blue light. But we want to have a positive way without a lot of begging and pleading and arguing to get them kind of into that process. So if you want to pick a couple of songs that your family loves and you love to do a little dance party to, it's a great way to get that happening. Our younger kids love to do animals up the stairs. So let's say you're going to move from the kitchen to the bedroom and you do have some stairs in between, or if you don't have stairs and you're all on one level, you could, make it from one room to the other. So I encourage you to have them pick an animal each night. And you guys could all be cheetahs, or you could all be rabbits, jumping, or you could be frogs. Just doing some kind of movement, some kind of engaging play to get their minds off of, we're going to bed, it's time for bed, right? And then they're like, I don't want to go. And so then we start getting them kind of distracted and make it fun. Play, it's fun to have a nice game that gives you a few minutes of really engaged time. That one-on-one time is really important with our kids. We want to spend 20 minutes somewhere in the day, if possible, one-on-one with our kids, what we see is that actually decreases their desire for engagement during the night, if they've kind of filled up their bucket during the day. So play is really fun. Pick your favorite game and do that for a few minutes. And then stretching, just kind of getting into the body, helping teach them some activities to get in touch with their bodies, but also to get kind of ready for bed, getting all the wiggles out. Um, the bedtime routine, it's great if we can put it into kind of, especially for our younger kids, like kind of 4 compartments, but we can do this with our older kids too. So one of the things is feel. So we're just thinking of like the senses, the tactical sense. So we're doing a shower or a bath very often. I mean, in Colorado, we're not always doing that every night because it's so dry. But even if you want to have some kind of a routine with a little sponge bath, we wash our faces, we wash our hands, we wash our feet, something to get that going. PJs on, and then kids of all ages love when you make a pizza on their back. You can roll out the dough, you can put on the pepperonis, you can sprinkle the cheese, you could bake a cake, but something that's kind of like that really physical connection time. They love it. And you can ask them involve them in the process. Ask them what kind of ingredients they want tonight, what kind of colors we're going to put on the cake. Get creative. Breathing. It's really good, important to give our kids some strategies to use so that when they wake during the night, should they find that we're not in the room, which hopefully we're not, they have some things to return to. So I recommend that we practice breathing exercises during the day, all throughout the day. So we're driving in the car together. Hey, everybody, let's do a minute of star breathing, right? So if you imagine the edges of the star and you're going to inhale and then exhale and inhale and exhale, you can draw one on a piece of paper and you can just trace the lines and practice breathing together. For our older kids, we could do box breathing where it's in for 2, hold it for 2, out for 3, hold it for 3. You could do any kind of a collaboration of numbers. It could be longer, shorter, but just to start that counting process also for them is great for that strategy as they're going to sleep. Little kids blowing out candles on the cake. You can smell the roses. Again, get creative with that. It's actually just helping them learn some of that regulation and some ideas. And it's good to practice throughout the day. I really recommend practicing many of these things during the day and not waiting until bedtime. Because at bedtime, we want to make that routine pretty concise, right? We don't want longer than 30 minutes. We want to be focused on what we're doing. We want to do the same routine in the same order pretty much every night, so that they start to have that journey into sleep and they know where they're headed. So because if we used to do 5 books this night and 1 book this night, and then they're going back to the kitchen and getting another drink of water, and then they want one, they want to change their pajamas. I mean, right? We could spend this whole hour talking about the number of ways that children push back at bedtime. So I don't need to tell you all about that. The third one is believe. So positive affirmation. I would just during the day sprinkle in thoughts like, you know what, we've been so busy today and we've done so many activities. We've been outside, we've been playing. I know you're going to have a great night of sleep tonight. Tell me what you're thinking, right? Like engage them in the process. Like, how are you feeling about bedtime tonight? Let's talk about it. I think a lovey is a great way for them to have a positive association. So I would definitely involve that in whether it's a blankie or a lovey, in their process at this point, and really get them kind of accustomed to it. If you don't have one already, that can be really fun. And then a worry box. Like a worry box is something that I use with my older children. If they're presenting anxiety or fear around bed, around sleep, I like to spend some time with them during the day talking about it. So you could, in the afternoon, sit down one-on-one and say, hey, I know like last night that you were a little bit anxious about going to sleep, or you were worried about, fill in the blank. I was hoping we could talk about it. I'd like to write it down, all the things you're thinking about, all the things you're worried about. And then you write them down and then put them in a box. It could be a Tupperware. It doesn't need to be fancy. And we're going to keep them in here, and I'm going to put them right here on this shelf. And then we're going to talk about it tomorrow morning. We're going to just check it out. But until then, you don't need to worry about it because they're right here. They're safe, and we'll get back to it in the morning. And then usually those things have kind of been processed. It's like what we do as adults as a brain dump before bed. If you're the type of person who tends to lay in bed and just ruminate and ruminate and ruminate, my suggestion is before you go into the bedroom, get out a piece of paper and just write down sloppy. You don't need to be able to read it. Every single thing that's on your mind, leave it outside the bedroom until the morning, right? It's just starting to get rid of some of that stuff so we don't have to keep holding on to it. And then relax. We want to do things that are relaxing for our kids. We don't want to be the thing that gets them to sleep. We don't want to lay with them, rock them, hold their hand, until they're asleep, because we're going to talk about that here in a couple minutes about independent sleep. But we do want them to be relaxed. So a bedtime story, songs. There's a great meditation for kids that are a little bit older. It's a 13-minute body scan through UCLA. And I have the link here. So if you want to screenshot this page, or if you want to write it down, and actually, I'm wondering if I can't copy it and put it into the chat right now, but if you just want to take a picture of it in some way, that it's a great resource. Um, and I actually just worked with a 13-year-old recently who was having so much anxiety, it was taking her hours to fall asleep at night. And she started doing this body scan every night on her own, just in the dark. She would listen to it. And I mean, it was tremendously helpful. By the end of our time working together, she was asleep in under 30 minutes and her mom was no longer laying with her. So great progress there. Timing matters. So we've got some different ages in this group. We have some kids that might still be taking naps. If not, I hope all of your kids who aren't in school are doing quiet time. So you can ask me some questions about that if you have any when it comes to that point. But if your child is still taking a nap and you're seeing a hard time getting to sleep at night, you're seeing wake ups or wakings kind of during the night that we don't think are attached to needing you, but just they're waking and they're having trouble settling, or we're seeing early morning wake ups. You might look at the overall sleep amounts because they might be getting a little too much daytime sleep, which then is going to affect the nighttime sleep. So that's something that, especially at that 3 to 4 year old range, we start looking at when it's time to transition out of that nap. Um, Overtired, undertired, this applies to all of us, right? We want to make sure that we're awake long enough during the day to fill up our sleep pressure cup, right? We want to be tired enough to actually sleep through the night. And this is part of why we do want good exercise. It's part of why we want to get outside several times a day to get that good, natural, full spectrum light, which is really informative for the circadian rhythm. So we don't, oftentimes, like, even if I've got like an older child that takes a little nap in the car on the way home from daycare, or when they get home from school, that can really decrease the ability to go to sleep at night, because what you've done essentially is you've emptied that sleep pressure cup. So we want to keep it nice and full, and kind of, it's sort of a Goldilocks that we want to think, like, we don't want them so overtired. So we're really avoiding those late bedtimes, right? For all of these kids in age range 3 to 8 or 9, we're really looking at bedtime between 7 and 8. And I know that some people just gasped when they heard me say that, but I really think that it's that earlier bedtime is very helpful. Um, let's see, are you able to show the 4-step slide again? Yes, we've just had a request to go back to that slide. I'm going to pop back into it for a minute here so someone can take a picture of it, and then we'll just move forward back to timing. So hopefully you've got it. I'm moving on. So sleep need in a 24-hour day, according to National Sleep Foundation, it's something to think about. With our 3 to 5 year olds, they want us to have 10 to 13 hours of overall sleep in a 24-hour period, and usually at the high end of these ranges. So, that's kind of a lot of sleep, right? I mean, if you're getting a 10 to 12 hour night, and if you're doing a nap, a 1 to 1.5 hour nap at this point, our 6 to 13-year-olds, 9 to 11 hours, right? How many of our 10-year-olds, right, or 8-year-olds are really still getting that 10, 11 hours of sleep at night? if we give them time to do it and space to do it, they will very often really sleep that long. I'll tell you, my kids, because sleep is my thing, so I have always made them go to bed or I've given them the opportunity to go to bed at a really good time. And they have pretty consistently slept 11 to 12 hours. They always will, right? Because I give them space for that. And they're 13 and 15 years old now. So I would say that's been pretty consistent through their lifetime. Um, and early morning to early bed. We already talked about that. So that's some of the timing. So at these ages, what we're really looking at most of the time is habit and behavior, right? Because we know our kids understand us and they're able to make choices. And it's our job, in my opinion, and in my professional opinion, from working with families, to really be the guide and doing that. And I'm sure our providers who are with us today are like ad nauseum talking to families about this, because if no doesn't mean no, and if the boundaries aren't clear, it's very anxiety producing for our kiddos. Like they need to know where the edges are, because then they know what they have to bump up against. If there are no edges and if they are in control of the situation, it's very stressful. Because they don't know and they're too young, obviously, to really be the ones who are in charge. So that consistency, and we can do it obviously very lovingly, but very clearly, right? These are my expectations. This is when bedtime happens. And once we get them through that process of being able to sleep on their own independently, we want to stick to it, right? We don't want to set up a situation where we tell them one thing one day and then we do something different the next. So consistency, clear expectations, super important. It's good to give our kids some choice in the matter when it's a reasonable choice. Of these two pairs of pajamas, which ones do you want to wear tonight? Of these three books, which two are we going to read tonight? Right? I mean, involve them in the process. While you're brushing your teeth, which song am I going to sing? Right? I mean, something that's going to, get them involved in the process, but where they are not ultimately choosing, every last thing. And then one of the things I love to do when I'm working with families one-on-one is the first week before we start doing our work together, I have them practice with a daytime behavior. So we work with rewards and consequences because that's usually the best and clearest way for kids to start practicing with new behaviors. But I'll pick something like picking up your toys at the end of the day, or sitting at the dinner table in your chair until dinner is over. Or what's another one that I like to do? I mean, pick a daytime behavior that your child's not very good at, a transition, right, of leaving the house. I pick something that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. I set an expectation with them right up front. Honey, tonight we're going to sit at the table. I'm going to invite you to sit at the table in your seat until dinner is done. If you stay in your seat on your bottom for the whole dinner, then you're going to get, this little piece of candy after dinner, or whatever the very little treat is. But if you don't make that good choice, then you won't get the candy, right? Make it simple. It doesn't have to be a huge deal. Oh, also quiet time. Quiet time is one of those things that I think we can work with, because everything's easier during the day, right? It's much easier to hold a boundary, as long as you're in your room and you're quiet and you're not calling out to me until the light turns green. When you get up, you'll get a 10-minute show, right? If you don't, then there won't be any show this afternoon, right? So it's your choice to make, but making it very clear with them. So I like to do that with a daytime behavior, because then those skills start to translate into what we're doing at night. Encouraging independent sleep. This is probably the biggest thing that we're going to hear about here when I open up the mic. But most of our issues at these ages are due to the fact that kids are used to their parents helping them get to sleep. So that could look like any number of things, but usually it's that you're laying in bed with them or you're sitting in their room until they're asleep. And if you aren't, what you see is that they're leaving the room, they're coming to look for you. It's this constant like, Mom, I'm waiting, and they just have a lot of anxiety around that process. If we have a child who is reliant on you or something outside of themselves that they need or believe they need to get to sleep in the first place, they will wake in the night looking for that same condition. Sure as day. They are going to definitely, instead of linking their sleep cycles together all night, which is what we do, they're going to, when they come to those lighter levels of sleep, they're going to come all the way to a full waking state, which causes fragmented sleep, and it doesn't allow them to have that deeper restorative sleep. And then they're going to look for you. They're either going to yell for you, they're going to come to your bedroom, they're going to sneak into your bed. I mean, I've got kids that climb into parents' beds and they're so used to it at this point, they don't even know. And then in the morning, they wake up and find them there, right? So we know that this is happening because they didn't learn how to go to sleep on their own in the first place. And I'm going to talk just in 1 second about some of my top strategies for changing that. But I get this question a lot: if white noise and a dark room are sleep props. They are not. I'm a huge fan of white noise at about the level of a shower in terms of volume, because there are a lot of ambient sounds. And when we're in that early morning sleep, it's very fragile sleep. We don't have melatonin being produced anymore. When we get to the time change here, it's going to be lighter earlier, and we're more prone to be woken up. That's when we start getting lots of calls about those early morning wakings. So I love the white noise because it masks the outside sounds. And I love a pitch black, dark room. If you've got a child who feels like they are scared of the dark or that they need a night light, I would suggest a really dim orange or yellow hue light behind a piece of furniture, so it's not really bright in their eyes. If you've got a street light outside and it comes in the sides of the blinds, I would really work to change that. Dark is best. So that's just one of those things that that I feel pretty strongly about. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about encouraging independent sleep. So we've done our good pre-bedtime routine. We've done our good bedtime routine. We've gotten them into bed in a realistic amount of time, no more than 30 minutes. And now it's the mommy or daddy or whoever, I need you to lay with me until I'm asleep. And so what I do when I'm working with families, and it's obviously more complicated than I can explain here, but I do a process where I keep you involved. So you can stay in the room sitting in a chair that you're going to be in, and you're going to share with your child before bedtime. We're going to try something new tonight because like it's really important for you to learn to sleep, and I want to be here to support you. So I'm going to sit in this chair while you're falling asleep, as long as you are quiet and your feet are in your bed. If you get out of your bed, if you try to talk to me, if you ask for one more thing, blah, 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 right? Then I'm going to have to leave and close the door. And I don't want to leave and close the door. I want to be here to help you, or I want to be here while you're falling asleep. So that's my work, is to stay here in the chair, and your work is to keep your feet in your bed and stay quiet going to sleep. And then you know that they're going to try to talk to you and they're going to try to get out of bed, especially our little ones. And then you're going to need to hold the line and leave and close the door. And I would say start with 1 minute. Let them know you're serious, but it doesn't have to be all night, right? So then I would go back to the chair and I would say, this is our next time to try. And then next time I would leave for 2 minutes. And I would continue this process until your child is asleep. And then same thing with the middle of the night wakings. You're just going to take their hand, you're going to walk them straight back to bed. You're not going to tuck them and snuggle them and kiss them and sing to them and do all this stuff, because we don't want them to be excited about that middle of the night engagement. You're going to hold the line again. I'm going to sit in this chair until you're asleep, as long as you're quiet and your feet are in your bed. And you just keep going with this process, and over a number of days, we move you out of the room. And because what it does is it gives the body an opportunity to relearn that going to sleep process without the anxiety of like, I need you here. I know you're going to leave. And it works to kind of reprogram the brain. So that's like probably my main tip if you want to try this on your own, is to start doing it that way and to really hold the line. They have to know that you mean it, and that you're not going to then cave in and lay with them. Because if you do all of this or if you let your child cry and then you go in anyway, what have they just learned? They've learned to cry. They've learned that crying and fighting and protesting is going to get them what they believe is the desired outcome. So those are some of my thoughts on that, but definitely developing independent sleep is really important. Dark is best. We've talked a little bit about this, but blue light that comes from our screens is very harmful to our sleep process and to our melatonin production. So we really ask for a power down hour. I would prefer that all children and adults, but I know that no one in this room is going to listen to me on that one, that we remove all forms of screens that last hour before sleep. We start to get into a little bit darker space. We start to encourage our bodies to produce the melatonin naturally. And we also stop that cortisol production process that comes from that blue light. If you're asleep during the night and you wake up and you look at your phone, even for 2 seconds, that flash of blue light starts that cortisol production in your brain, which is a hormone that is actually like our waking hormone, and it's much, much harder to get back to sleep. So if you're waking up with your littles during the night, I really recommend that you don't look at your phone. I know it's hard not to do it, but if you can turn it off and put it in the kitchen, dock it for the night, that's really my recommendation. Light and the time change. We're about to see the time change, and it's going to get lighter earlier. So we're going to see our kids starting to have those early morning wake ups if the room isn't super, super dark. So I prefer that we, I like a 10 out of 10, on the darkness, but it's up to you. And I've offered some solutions here of different kinds of blinds that you can put inside of your blinds if you're really looking for a true blackout solution. And then I know a lot of people are here because they want to hear about the time change and what to do. It's a little bit confusing to explain right here. So a couple things. I recommend that you go to our website. It's sleeperteachers.com. And our most recent blog is all about the time change. We give you 3 different options of ways to handle it that are based on basically the age of your child. But essentially, this one for our early morning wakers, as long as the room is dark, this is kind of like our best time change, right? Because it's going to seem like they're sleeping in later in the morning. But with our younger kids, so I would say like that, excuse me, like 3 to 5 years of age, I would do 15 minutes earlier to bed each night for 3 nights starting on Sunday. So let's say your child typically goes to bed at 7:30. Once the clocks have changed, so on Sunday night, 7:30 on the clock is going to feel like 8:30 to your body, right? So we're going to move it to 7:15. So it'll feel like 8:15. And then we're going to move it 15 minutes earlier and 15 minutes earlier. And then by Wednesday night, we'll be to the point where you can, put them down. Wait, did I say the right time? See, I can never explain this out loud, but you could read what I wrote there, and you could also read the blog because it's all in there. But essentially, we, with our older kids, we're going to spend about 3 nights kind of acclimating them, and you should then be pretty caught up. But don't be afraid to do a slightly earlier bedtime for some of your kids. Like if they're seeming overtired, sleep begets sleep, and usually if we give them a chance to sleep, they will, right? If you want to follow us on Instagram, Brittany is always offering a ton of great information for all ages around sleep. So I highly recommend that. And then also, if you are, when we're done with this tonight, if you feel like, I think we could maybe use some individual support, the best way to do that is to book an eval call with me. And this is the way to do that. Just that little link there. And I am offering night 1 support through Voxer, which is just it's an upgrade that I do in my packages, and that's through 9 p.m. our time. If you are wanting to do some support and you book and mention PIP through the month of March, then you'll get to have me with you talking back and forth as you're having your experience up until 9 p.m. that first night. So those are just a few little things there. And now I'm going to just open it up. I'd love to hear from the providers. Like, Ben, Nancy, if you guys have anything that you want to contribute or share at this moment, and then we can just start going down the line on questions.
Well, thank you so much. Sarah, it is so true. You mentioned the very beginning how important sleep is for kids. And often, I know Ben will probably have something to say about this too, but so often when we have people coming in either with complaints of being tired, fatigue, learning problems, does my kid have a problem with focus or ADD, headaches, chronic abdominal pain, often what Ben and I and the other providers will do is ask very carefully about their sleep, because in many cases there's disrupted sleep or poor sleep habits, inadequate sleep, not good quality sleep, and that's interfering with the child's daytime abilities, whether it's learning, paying attention, or stress, that can lead to headaches and stuff too. So sleep is so important. And then I think probably the hardest thing that we run into is perhaps, I want to say parental guilt. Those of us who are trying to do so many things with our work and our work at home and our Zoom and running our households and doing homeschool, especially right now with COVID. I mean, we've got our own worries and concerns. And I think sometimes we feel, I just can't say no to my child. Sometimes we project, oh, I don't want to hurt their feelings. And so it's so easy it's the quick fix to take that child to bed with you, to lie down with them. And but really the big gift you can give your child is helping them learn the skill of falling asleep. So I really am so glad that you're helping. You've helped so many of our families, and I appreciate this opportunity tonight. Ben, do you have anything to add?
So yeah, I think that another thing that's with COVID and pandemic, and I think we mentioned it before, is that at least with the older kids, when we're getting older, it seems like they're tending to go to bed later. And one of the reasons why it is, and it's happening, it's been even with my kids, it's like, well, you don't have to wake up as early, and so they're going to bed later. But it's still, that is creating a problem with their sleep cycle, and it's been almost universal for my older adolescents, the tweens and teens. This has been happening just because they're like, hey, my excuse is, well, I don't have to show up to class until 8 or 9, so I'm going to go to bed at whatever. And I've seen that that's been a problem too. And it's just as important to remember that early to bed, early to rise is going to keep that cycle going at a more healthy way for sure. Yeah, so that's one of the things I just wanted to add.
I love that. I'm so glad that you brought that up because it's so true. And I do think that sometimes we have this mentality that we can catch up, but sleep isn't really one of those things that we can truly catch up on. Like you've missed it, right? I mean, we can't refill it, in reverse. And and we also, when you were saying that, I was thinking about in COVID, the ramifications of so much increased screen time because have been doing so much online school, that has also, I think, really kind of affected our abilities to be able to calm down and to soothe and to sleep. I mean, it's really kind of having an effect on that. So I know with our older kids, when they're doing homework on their computer until kind of late, right? Then it can sometimes affect their ability to get down. So definitely really important things to be thinking about. And I mean, I am just constantly saying to my client families, like, please don't be afraid of an early bedtime. There's really nothing to lose, right? I mean, the earlier we can get to bed, especially if it takes your little one some time to get to sleep, let's start earlier so that we have more opportunities. So I love that. So let's see, there's some questions coming in the chat. So I'm going to start talking about those. So Jessica, I don't know if you can unmute yourself.
Yes, I can.
Okay, hi, great. So your 3-year-old is no longer napping and wakes early. He's not getting anywhere close to 10 to 13 hours of sleep. How do you get him to sleep longer in the morning? So can I ask, what time is he getting to bed?
So we usually start bedtime anywhere between 7 and 7:30.
Okay. Do you have the opportunity to start earlier, especially because he's not napping?
We could, he just doesn't seem to be ready to go down at that point.
Okay. And he may not, present that way. A lot of times when we have overtired kids, the way that what's happening is they're actually they're kind of overstimulated. They tend to get very engaging. It's kind of like that second wind. And I think there's a real likelihood that at 3 years old without a nap, he's potentially overtired, especially if he's having an early morning wake up. What time is early morning?
Sometimes like 5:15.
Yeah. So one thing that I would do is, do you have a hatch or an okay to wake clock or any kind of a light clock that can indicate when it's morning?
Yes, we do, and he just doesn't have any desire to even respond to it.
Okay, so this is one of those things where you might practice with holding a boundary. So, and not that you're not already holding boundaries, but this would just be a new one. So I would say if you want to back up bedtime a little bit, I have even sometimes 4-year-olds who've just dropped the nap and they are in bed by 6:30, right? Because we find that they need a little bit more sleep. So I would practice with making bedtime a little bit earlier, as early as 6:30 even. And I would also share with him, does he have a pretty good grasp, like understanding and language?
Yeah, he's really smart.
So I would share if is there something he enjoys first thing in the morning? Does he watch a show? Does he like a treat? Is there something that happens in the morning?
Yeah, he likes to play on my phone for a little while.
He likes to play on your phone. So I would attach that to staying in his room until the light turns green. So this is, in the beginning, he's not going to be asleep the whole time. But if he understands that he may not call to you and he may not leave his room until the light turns green in the morning, and the room has to stay dark. If you have to put some kind of a cover over the light switch, we want it to remain a sleep conducive environment and make it very boring for him. So love, I want you to have time on my phone in the morning, but we won't have time unless you choose to stay in your room, in your bed, until the light turns green. And it's going to take you probably a little bit of time to get there, but as long as you hold it consistently and it's and then, you got to stick to it. So then when he wants your phone in the morning, and you have to say no, then he's going to be disappointed. It's a good opportunity to talk about disappointment and how tonight will be another time to try. And then we start really practicing with that. So it's all behavior and choice at this point. So I think that's where I would start.
Is it too late because I kind of give in? I have a 6-month-old as well who doesn't like to sleep, and so I've been giving in a little bit more than I should on it. He'll respond okay if I start going backwards basically and being like, nope, not until you stay in bed.
Yeah, it's not too late. He might be mad, but that's okay. He's 3 and you're the parent. So if he's definitely not too far gone to learn a new behavior. And I think it's well worth doing, because these new experiences of behavior are going to translate into other daytime choices, and it's going to help with your overall parenting.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry to hear about your 6-month-old. Did you come to the session on Monday?
Yep, and some of the stuff that we're doing is already helping. So yay, thank you.
Awesome. I love to hear that. Okay, good. So glad.
I just want to pop in and say, it's okay as parents to say, I know we used to do it this way, but that's not working really well for me. Mommy needs her sleep to be a good mommy. You need your sleep to grow and be strong. And so we're going to need to do a different way now. And that's why the rules are changing. So it's okay to say, I know we used to do it, because just because you've given in doesn't mean you're cooked. You can tell your child that was a mistake. We're going to do it a better way now, because I love you and I care about you and I want you to grow and I want me to have energy to be your mom.
Totally.
Thank you. I like that way. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. One of my favorite statements is, I'm a person too. Right? So you have to throw that in there. It's good. Okay, Jen. Hi. I have a 2-year-old that was climbing out of his crib, so we moved him to a toddler bed. Can't get him to stay in bed. As soon as I put him in bed, he immediately climbs out. And after walking him back 50 times, I finally give up. Any tips to get him to actually lie down? So this came up last night, and I knew it would come up again tonight too. In my opinion and in my experience, it's just so young to be in a bed. And I know that a lot of parents do this because their kids start to climb and because it doesn't feel safe to have them in the crib anymore. So I have a couple of quick questions about the crib. Like how, Jenny, are you unmuted?
Yeah, I'm unmuted.
How long ago did he make this transition?
This is our second or third week.
Third week, okay. And did you do all the things to try to get him to stay in the crib? Did you put him in a sleep sack, or was he in a sleep sack?
No.
So one of the things, I mean, I often, and how old is he? Is he close to 2?
He's like 2 and 3 months, so he's very young.
So pretty young. I mean, obviously his safety is paramount. But I have transitioned people back to the crib at this age, sometimes because we do find that they're not developmentally capable of understanding the boundary. And so once they find out that they have this much freedom, you know, you've really kind of lost control. And so, you know, sometimes people, if they can't get back into a crib, they will put a gate on the door. You know, they'll do like a safety lock, you know, with a baby monitor, just making sure that we can still see what's going on. Last night, Dr. Rubin, he had this great sort of visual in my mind, because we were talking about a 2-year-old who's like kind of a little bit of a terror around this. And so they had a gate on their door, but he would like mess with everything in the room. So my recommendation, and Dr. Rubin backed me up on this, was to take every single thing out of that room except for the mattress. Essentially, you're making the room itself into a crib. So that and then there will probably be some crying involved and some protest, because he's not going to like the fact that he doesn't have that freedom right now. But we have to keep him safe, first of all. And we've got to get you guys so you're sleeping again. So you know, I have worked with families and done the process that I do with older kids at this age, but it's a little harder to get there. I'm just going to be honest, because they have a hard time really understanding.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So if you can put him back in the crib and you can lower the mattress safely and you can put him into a sleep sack with a zipper on the back so he can't unzip it, that makes it much harder to climb. And that's usually where I start with people. You know, but I also do want to be mindful of the safety aspect. So I'm gonna ask our doctors if they have any thoughts on this one, because I'm sure it comes up.
So I have a question: was he still napping? Hopefully, right?
Yeah, he's still napping.
And then when he goes down for a nap, is he going down on his own on a nap, or are you getting him to sleep on a nap?
Well, great question. Mostly, so he's napping at daycare, and he does that just fine. And this last weekend, I didn't even try to put him down for a nap because I knew I wasn't going to be able to get him to stay down.
Okay, but before you guys transitioned, like on weekends when he's not at daycare, would he go to the nap fall asleep on his own, or did he need your help to fall asleep for the naps?
Well, when he was in his crib, I would just put him in his crib and then shut the door. But now that he started climbing out, we're in a totally different spot. Okay.
Well, that's good. I mean, because you can know that he has the ability to soothe himself to sleep.
Right.
And so that's a good thing to know with what's going on with him now, because you know that he does have the ability, even though it's not nap time, it's nighttime, he still has the ability to self-soothe, which is good.
Yeah, and as far as safety, I'm not super concerned, because right now where we are, he's in a travel crib, so like it's low enough to the ground that he won't hurt himself if he climbs out. So I mean, I feel pretty comfortable with just trying what Sarah, what you recommended, and I'll just have to, he knocks the baby gate down so he can get over that, so I'll have to figure out another way to keep him in there. But
they are sneaky, right? I've had kids that pile up their blankets and they climb over the gate that way. I mean, you name it, they're going to figure it out. But so I think that's really great that you're willing to try that. It could buy you honestly another 8-10 months of sleep. Until he's ready to understand. And I agree with Ben. I'm so glad that he asked you those questions, because it is great that we know he knows how to sleep and that this is purely behavior, right? And so then we have to approach it as a behavioral issue. And you creating those boundaries for him, if you can, would be where I would start.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Reach out if you can't get there, because that's what I help people with every day. Zach, can you talk a bit about any special strategies for autistic kiddos, especially with the middle of the night wakings? Many thanks. I have a few thoughts on this, but I'd love to go straight to our providers. If you guys have some thoughts and questions on this, Zach, can you unmute?
Yep. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
How old is your child? I will ask that. Just
It's sort of a funny situation. We have assumed the care of my 8-year-old niece whose father passed very unexpectedly. And so she is splitting her time between our house. She's now starting to have sleepovers here. The other complication with this is the rest of the time she is co-sleeping with her grandparents because she's also been diagnosed with Dravet's. We're transitioning her to sleeping here in her own bed, which is going well, but she is accustomed to waking up in the middle of the night. And kind of looking around with the co-sleeping with the grandparents, they're able to just have her go back to, just like put a hand on her back and have her go back to sleep. Here she has her own bed and her own situation. And we're trying to manage that middle of the night wake up.
Okay. That can be really tough. And my goodness, in a situation like this, I certainly feel for your family. This is just a lot of transition for her to go through. Does she have a weighted blanket?
She does.
Okay. Because sometimes, sensory issues with these kids are so important. They need just the right amount of sensation and stimulation to help kind of make their world make sense. So I think consistency as best you can between the households, what lovey or what object, what about the blanket, any particular sense or smell that she likes or dislikes, routine, and sometimes, sequence of things in transition as you're preparing for that bedtime. If she's getting overtired, that can be really rough. A lot of my children with autism really want to know, well, wait, what's happening next? What's happening next? So I don't know if they were accustomed to using like a dry erase board or something like that to say, we're going to have our bath, and then we're going to have our brush our teeth, and then we're going to have our book, and then we're going to get all snuggly like a little burrito and tell you a story and then grow and see how we can do. So I think right now, was she a good sleeper before?
She's actually she is a great sleeper, and actually getting like the routine to get her to sleep is fine.
Okay.
It is really just the middle of the night wake up.
Okay.
And curious of some of the strategies that were talked about earlier in terms of reading the story not in her bed, just kind of like taking a little bit of a distance while she is here and sleeping in her own bed she'll not be missing conditions as she wakes up, if that feels like that would be a similar strategy to employ here.
Yeah. I think that might be a good trial for her as well. Certainly she's not taking any medication, not on any special diets.
She has some sleep aids, including some prescribed melatonin, but that usually runs out around 2 in the morning, okay. And that's when we're seeing her wake up.
One other integrated medicine thing that we employ sometimes for short term, just to help promote more restful sleep. And I did bring it just because I recommend this one a lot. It's over the counter. You can find it at Whole Foods or Vitamin Cottage. We've got them at our office too, but it's something called Valerian Super Calm. And Yeah, so that might be something that you could also give her before bedtime to just, for several nights in a row, just to see if that helps promote more restful sleep. And then background noise, what has she been using? Can you all be consistent with that? The light, as Sarah mentioned, that's super important as well. So, but it sounds like she's lucky to have you all, hoping to try and place great value on getting her back on a routine with good sleep. So
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I wouldn't have added anything beyond that. So I think that's really good. A lot of routine. And I also I feel for you because this is not easy where you're at. And it sounds like she's very lucky to have you and to have that really thoughtful attention, because there's obviously a lot going on. The next question, and I'm not going to pronounce her name correctly. Healy, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, great. My 9-year-old will wake up at 5:30 on Saturday and Sunday to watch TV because those are the only days he gets it. Any thoughts on how to keep him from waking so early? Yeah, great question. You know, I would just institute a boundary. And I would use. I mean, he can obviously read the clock at this point. Just to let him know, like, what time do you think is a good wake time? Is it like?
We said 7, like he has to stay in bed till 7, but then it's like a really long time. We tell him play with your toys, read, but he doesn't want to.
It is. So one of the things I might do, and I have to apologize, my computer says it's going to run out of batteries and my charger is downstairs. So I'm just going to keep talking until it runs out. One of the things I would do is I would set him up with some food. So if he let him know, like, if there's like a snack or something like that, because maybe sometimes they're like waking a little bit. It's probably not really because he's hungry. It's probably because he's just excited to get to the TV, right? But I would just hold that boundary that if you don't stay until your room until 7, then we're not going to get to have TV. I would just make it a rule. And it's going to be a kind of a pain in the beginning, especially because you're like, these are the only 2 days of the week, and you really want to kind of reward him with that. But I think that if you start to make it not as exciting to wake up for that, it's just like our kids who, if they know they're going to get nursed at 4:30 in the morning, they're going to start waking up at 4:30, right? Because they program themselves to get to that stimulus. So is there any way you could, does that even sound like a strategy that might work with your family, just to kind of instill something like that?
Yeah, like we've tried that, and he's nice, so he pushes the boundaries a little.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but I think that it's really, we have to make it less interesting for him to get up, right?
Yeah.
And so if he knows that he just absolutely isn't going to get the thing that he wants, or if he chooses, let's say on a Saturday, he chooses to get up at 5:30 and get to the TV, well, then we know that he's lost the privilege for Sunday. Yeah. And that usually, like, if you hold that boundary, then they are going to make a different choice.
And one compromise you could do is tell them, oh, you're not going to miss the 5:30 cartoons. We're going to set record, but you still need to honor the getting up time, the awakeful time for the family. You get up, you go, you're not going to miss any of the stuff you were going to see in the morning.
Right.
And you fast forward through those commercials that are trying to encourage him to eat stuff he shouldn't eat. So,
yeah. And it's playing video games on the iPad too, right? So a little bit of both. So he wants,
set boundaries and say that's off limits until
maybe I need to hide the iPad in my room on Saturday and Sunday mornings.
I am a huge fan of putting the screens away where they have no idea where they are. And I'll tell you, Healy, my children are 13 and 15, and I'm kind of a screen time Nazi. And this is a conversation we have had to revisit many, many times because it is a very slippery slope. And I find that I start to kind of loosen the boundaries a little bit, and then there's a little bit more here and a little bit more there. And then we just have to have a family meeting, like, whoops, we're off the rails. What are you noticing? I'm noticing, and then we're back on, right? And I feel like seasonally it kind of changes too, right? I mean, summertime, we tend to get a little loosey goosey. COVID, I mean,
Right.
we have nothing normal right now. So yeah, you
Thank
can
you.
do it, but get tough. Okay, we'll try to do like 2 more. Let's see if we can get 2 more in. Hi, Jennifer. I have a 4-year-old who just started having night terrors. He wakes up screaming and wakes up run. What can I do? So I just have only a tiny bit to say about this, but would love to hear from the providers. My feeling is that we usually see these when we're, if it's truly night terrors, it's sometimes associated with a little bit of sleep deprivation. So if you, I would ask Jennifer, like, how much sleep is your little guy getting, and is he getting enough, right? So that would be the first place I would start. Is he getting into bed early enough, and is he getting enough sleep?
So he's pushing actually. We start at 7:30 bedtime, but then he has been like playing all the games, like, oh, come here, read me a book, like, wait a minute. And he's finally falling asleep around 9 p.m. And then he's waking up basically, I will say 6:15. In the night terrors, I think it's night terrors just because he screams bloody murder in the middle of the night or 2 hours after going into bed, and he wakes up everyone. I have a 6-year-old and he has been waking her up too. And then following that, we have tried to put boundaries, and if you wake up, you need to come and talk to us and we will walk you back. And he will just, he's doing the whole thing of going back to bed and coming back again. So then not only the night terrors, but we're playing the game of him wanting us to lay in bed with him in the middle of the night.
Yeah. So do you have that experience of him wanting you to, that he wants you to lay with him in the beginning, like when he first goes to sleep at night?
Yes.
Yeah, I would fix that first. So I would definitely start bedtime a little bit earlier if you know that it's kind of taking this much time for pushback, because 9 is too late. And I think he's not getting enough sleep. I know he's not getting enough sleep. And Dr. Nancy's like definitely saying yes to this. And I would work really hard to separate yourself from that process of him going to sleep initially. And I did offer a little bit of strategy around that. But if it's something that you feel like you can't do on your own, or you need some support, that's why my profession exists, right? To help people learn how to do this and how to do it well, so that you really have a successful sleeper on your hands. And then you're seeing those middle of the night visits and wake ups because he's not going to sleep on his own in the first place.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then Brendan Fisher, should my 3 almost 4-year-old still be in his room for quiet time in the afternoon? He doesn't nap, but I want to make sure 1 hour quiet. Yes, I love a quiet time. I love a quiet time all the way until when they go to school. I like a quiet time box. You can do a box of activities that you change up every few days, just a couple of things that keep them entertained. I love the opportunity for them to learn to do some independent play and not be reliant on you the whole time. And our kids need some downtime, right? We need some downtime. They need that space to kind of recharge. So I'm a huge fan for as long as you can get them to do it. Nancy, Ben, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree.
Good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Well, we're all thumbs up on that one. Are you getting pushback on that? On the
No, he enjoys doing quiet time. Our biggest obstacle is that he also decides that's his time to poop. So sometimes that involves some extra attention because it ends up being a little bit of a messy situation. Today he had to actually do bath during quiet time.
Okay, well, you'll get through that.
I think he enjoys it. Sometimes it's not the full hour, but he does keep himself busy. But I like the idea of the quiet time box. I think that's a great idea to give us something to kind of really increase creativity and just kind of change it up.
And there's about a billion ideas on Pinterest for quiet time box activities.
Okay.
With the poop, I mean, I would say, like, let's try to encourage him before the quiet time. Let's take him to the bathroom a half an hour before and just give him some space and time, like give him a book, let him just kind of see if his body will respond that way. Because, I know this is going to sound crazy, but sometimes they'll save it for that time because they want the engagement. The other thing that you could do is you could give him like a potty pass. to use like in the first 5 minutes of his quiet time. And once he's used it, then he's done, right? That kind of a thing, like put a little structure around it so that we're really thinking about it and paying attention to it. I also recommend a potty pass or a drink pass or an extra hug pass or whatever that they get one of during the bedtime routine if you've got a bedtime pushback kid. And then once they've used it, it's done, right? You've already used your pass. And so now it's time to be quiet and in your bed. So we're kind of at our end of our time. I mean, let's see. Oh my God, we only have one more. Can we answer it in time? Anne Marie, a 9-year-old sleeping on the floor next to me right now. Tried everything mentioned, given up because we're exhausted. Yeah. So Anne Marie, my recommendation is that you book a call and we talk about it, because sometimes it's just a little more comprehensive, like what needs to happen, you know, in terms of shifting that. And like I said, I just worked with that 13-year-old who mom has laid with her literally every night from birth until now. And it really took some commitment, right? But in 2 weeks, we were really able to get those skills going. And it was such a relief for her daughter to not feel like she is anxious about needing mom or needing to be in the room with her. It's so worth committing to if it's something that you feel like, you know, you'd like to talk about, because, you know, nothing changes if nothing changes, right? And you guys have tried so many things, and I can understand that frustration around it. So
I feel like we've kind of tried everything that we can.
Yeah.
We are literally exhausted. And
sure.
right now, the only option is to have her next to me. It's the only way I get sleep.
Yeah. And this is why every parent is in this position that they are around troubled sleep, is because we're tired, and the path of least resistance is often the way there. And I don't blame you or shame you in any way. I mean, you guys have been trying, you just haven't been able to crack the code. And sometimes it takes another set of eyes to really get there.
Yeah.
Okay. Anne Marie, the other thing that I would recommend too, this is a time, this whole past year has been a time of just so many worries and concerns, and 9-year-olds have the ability to start imagining other kinds of things to be worried about the health of their parents, their grandparents, their teachers, missing their friends, worrying about things they might see. You know, be very careful and mindful of what's being seen on screen time or social media or any of that. Be mindful of the conversations you have in front of her so that she is looking forward to things. And I would definitely check in with your pediatrician or with us if you're in our practice, to have her have an opportunity to see, is anxiety an issue that we need to be treating a little bit more aggressively. We do have some 9-year-olds and even younger who've been especially anxious, and I think that might be something just worth looking into, just to be sure.
So for sure. And I think it's very important that people are talking to you guys, to your care providers around this. And by the way, if you're not seeing the doctors at Partners in Pediatrics, I think you should switch practice and come see them. They have an amazing practice. What'd you say, Emery?
We see Dr. Mike.
Oh, good. I love Dr. Mike. We see him for our son. Yeah. I mean, they just have a great approach, and I think have so much wisdom to bring to the table. So yeah, and definitely worth checking it out, because there could be other things going on, you know. Okay, you guys, well, thank you so much. Thanks for being here tonight. Hopefully everyone got the information they needed. If there are any lingering questions, don't hesitate to contact us. Oh, and Ben's book, of course. Yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit about that. Ben, you want to talk about it to the group?
Yeah, so I wrote a book a while ago, and hopefully it's really focused on prevention. And one of the biggest things about prevention, meaning trying to keep your kids healthy and well, is sleep. And so that's one of the sections I do have. It's on each age kind of section I have in this book that I wrote that has information on sleep, not as detailed as we're talking about tonight, of course, but some of it is, and some of it has some great resources. So that's something to think about if you want to look more global into other things that can kind of keep your kids healthy. You can look into that at our office, and it's on Amazon as well.
Awesome. And yes, someone just asked Jessica if I'm going to send this video out. yes, we're going to email this video. I did record tonight, thank goodness, to the group and to everyone who signed up, because I think a lot of people weren't able to actually come live to the webinar. And then, yep, for sure you'll get it. So good news.
All right.
Okay, everyone. Thank you. Go to bed.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys next time. Check out the blog on the time change too. So it's good to have that kind of under your belts. Okay. Night.